Have you ever heard the statement that everything is happening for your greater good?
Do you find the statement to be realistic or is it a little hard to swallow? Today's topic, three words that will have you see the blessing in every situation.
Welcome to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart.
And I'm Taria Hodge.
And the big question is this: how does the average entrepreneur like us start with limited time, zero marketing budget, and little to no online presence get their authentic message into the marketplace and become a person of influence?
And what skills must you learn? And most importantly, who are you required to become to magnetically attract your divine clients and build a loyal following? Welcome, Suzanne. Welcome to another episode of the Influencers Journey Show. I absolutely miss sitting down, speaking with you. I think so much has happened since we did one of these. Or is it just me?
Absolutely. No, I think a lot has happened. I mean, you've moved, you've traveled, you've been on vacation, lots of things happening in the life of Taria. And so it's great to see you. I got to tell you, this topic was life changing for me.
Mm.
Life changing. So I want all the listeners to know life, life, life changing. How about you?
Well, I have to say it is a very life-changing concept. And I too am learning to embrace the power of these words. And so, yes, I am ready to sit down, unpack this with our super achievers. And so, super achievers, if you guys are out there, you're listening, you're watching, go ahead and let us know, have you considered these three words? And if you have, what kind of impact have these words made on your life?
I have to tell you, the first time I heard these words, I was sitting in a training, as I often am,
Mhm.
and the person said these words, and I was like, and I thought, this is ridiculous. It actually pissed me off. And it pissed me off because it was so simplistic that it felt like someone was making light of my difficult, massive, overwhelming situation.
Mhm.
And you know those times when you think, well, they don't know what's going on for me. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand. I was in one of those moments, and I like to say to myself, well, your situation is not that special. That's a mature Suzanne. But back then I was like, that can't be. So we're going to talk about what can happen when you actually embrace three words.
Yeah. And well, for me, it's kind of interesting with these three words because I remember hearing them for the first time. And it's actually, I can't remember what biblical passage it comes from, but it's actually inside of the Bible. And I remember, actually wrestling with those words when I first heard them and have been in plenty of debates with others around the world around those words. And sometimes the debates will go, well, how could everything, be perfect? How could it all be good if like things are falling apart? And so that has been a very big learn for me. And I'm excited to sit down and talk about that because sometimes, even when we think things are falling apart, things are actually falling into place. And so we just have to rest and trust in those words and have faith around those words and just let things unfold. So it's very
Yeah.
interesting.
So if you're having a hard time wrapping your head around the concept that everything is happening for your greater good, let us know in the comment section. Like, what does it mean when you hear that? Do you truly believe it? Are you wrestling with it? Because when we dive into this topic, I'm trusting that we're going to give you a new perspective, new insight, and something different to hold on to.
Yeah.
So as you jump on, welcome, welcome, welcome. Please let us know who you are, where on the planet you're hailing from, and what you do for a living. What do you do while you're living? Let us also know who is that group of people that you are called to serve, and what makes you tick? What are you passionate about?
Mm. All right. And for our super achievers, if you are out there tuning in and you are watching us on YouTube, I'm going to ask that you do a couple of things for us. So first, go ahead, give us some love. Go ahead, hit the like button on this video, because I promise you this conversation is going to be fire today. And then also go ahead, subscribe to the channel, and then share this video with other super achievers that you know will be interested in this topic. And don't forget, drop those comments, because we would definitely love to hear from you.
And if you're listening to the replay, definitely hashtag replay and do the same thing. Let us know who you are, where you're joining us from, what you do while you're living, and comment. Let us know what you're taking away. Ask your questions. We will definitely go back and check the questions, check the comments, and get into a conversation. Also, get into dialogue with one another. This is our networking opportunity. Find out what other people do while they're living and what makes them tick. Why are they so passionate? So, Taria, are you ready to get this party started?
I most definitely am.
So for those of you that are just joining us, welcome to the Influencers Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart. This is my girl, Taria Hodge. And our hot topic today is 3 words that will have you see the blessing in every single situation.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ready.
So I know, Suzanne, for me, I remember the first time you shared these words with me. And it was one of those situations where I was really having a tough time in my business. And I remember you distinctly saying, it's all perfect. And you are absolutely correct, because in the back of my mind, I was just like, is she crazy? Like, what in the world is she talking about? Is it all perfect? Everything is falling apart. Don't you see? My life is about to go into shambles, burst up into flames. I'm a little bit dramatic. Burst up into flames and all of that horrible stuff. And you're just over there sitting behind a computer. I remember it was one of these Zoom calls. And you're just like, Taria, it's all perfect. So the question I would like to ask you is, why did you share those words with me? And as a practice, you share it with all your clients.
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that I have learned as a mentor, as a friend, is it's so easy to get into the pity party with someone, right? We let them marinate, we let them vent, we let them, do all these things. And yes, we have to let things out. But the question is, what is the context, the environment to which you're venting? So I really learned that what I have to do is set the reframe right away when someone is in a situation. So whenever I say to someone, it's all perfect, they do what? They stop.
Right.
They look at me and they're like, what? Right? However, what it does is it disrupts where they're at. And they're grappling now with how can it be perfect? Now, isn't that a great place to go?
Yeah.
How can it be perfect? How can it be great? How can this be for my own good? How can versus why is this happening to me? This is so unfair. This is that, the other. They're now in a different questioning.
Yeah.
And you were in a different questioning, although you were looking at me like, you crazy, but how can this be perfect?
Yeah, because I love the word that you use, and the word that you use is reframe. And so it definitely gives you the opportunity to stop in that moment and take a different perspective on the situation. And it allows you to just focus on something different. And you are absolutely correct, because I remember that time, on the call, I was in full-blown pity party mode, and I wanted friends over. I had enough wine for everyone, and it was that thing where you said, no, everything is perfect. And in the midst of me saying, what is she talking about? What do you mean it's all perfect? Then it allowed me to see the things that I wasn't paying attention to before. It allowed me to see areas of opportunity, for growth, for change, for learning, to do things a little bit differently from how I've always been doing them. Oh my gosh, so many things came out. Look at people differently. Oh my gosh, last week we talked about who's, and oh my gosh, I started to look at my who's that I had, decided I needed more who's. It was game changing, life changing. And so it's
Absolutely.
become a practice question for me.
Right. So let's rewind before you get to who's and what's and looking at things differently. I think the first thing is when I say to you, or I say to myself, or I say to someone else, it's all perfect. And when I'm by myself, I go, how is this perfect?
Mhm.
I'm now self-coaching. So how is this? I go, Suzanne, it's all perfect. So how is this perfect? And it's a great question, because the thing I do know, Taria, is our mind likes to stretch and grow.
Yeah.
Remember, mindset, we are here for more. We are here to expand, grow, become more. So our mind likes to stretch and grow. Our access to stretch and growth is not why questions
Yeah.
that put us into why me? Why is this happening to me? Isn't that what we do?
Yeah.
Into how is this perfect?
Right.
How is this for my greater good?
Yeah.
And this is the thing I know. When you start asking yourself and someone great questions, their mind goes seeking better
Yes.
answers. And when you're asking the why question, why is this happening to me? The only place you're going to go is the answer to why is this happening to you?
Yeah.
That's not necessarily a great question. But when you get into it's all perfect, how is this perfect? You're
Right.
now asking a very, very different question. So
Right.
that's the first part. It's the reframe, and not just the reframing it as, imagine this or imagine that, but asking that reframe question that puts your mind down a different path.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
So
Hmm.
go ahead.
No, no, I was gonna say you said that was the first thing. I was eagerly awaiting the second thing.
Right. So this the other thing that this does, and this is a step in two, is that, when you ask yourself, what do you do when life comes down your street and it becomes unpredictable, messy, and challenging? Well, we can focus on the challenge. We can focus on the mess and how many you get caught in the mess of stuff, the messiness of thing, or we can focus in the unpredictability of stuff, and it takes us into overwhelm.
Mhm.
When we start from the perspective of this is all perfect, right? And all this is happening for my greater good. This is happening because there's something I'm supposed to learn. This is happening because there's a way I'm supposed to grow. This is happening because I'm supposed to become more. This is happening because I have to expand my identity. This is happening because, and you're looking for these positive things. Not only do we shift your perspective, but now we send you on a mission of search.
Yeah.
And
And
what
it
you were
redirects
talking,
your energy too.
right? So what you were talking about, what happens when you shift your perspective from what's bad about this to
Hmm.
what's good about this, and you redirect your search,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? So how are you supposed to grow? And I remember, we had this conversation about how are you required to grow right now?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what happened?
Yeah, I started to grow. So it gave me areas to absolutely look at and say, wow, these are the areas where, some of them I never even considered, to be honest. Other areas, I grew in those areas and I was up at a ceiling and I had to raise the ceiling. I had to raise the bar. And I'm like, oh, okay. So that's another opportunity to stretch there. It definitely, it allowed me, one of the biggest things it allowed me to do was take a look at relationships and reevaluate relationships, number one, which is always a beautiful thing, how we could firm up the relationships that we have, when we have value in those relationships, when we all should. And then it also gave me a new perspective to the new relationships that I need to acquire. and develop. So it was, like I said, definitely game changing for me.
You know, as you were talking, it one of the things that it allows for is a shift in identity.
Mhm.
So, you know, they say that the person who got you to this place in your life is not the person who's going to get you to the next place. And how many of us are comfortable in the identity that we have? This is how I do this. This is who I hang out with. This is what I do. And we're very routine about the identity. I truly believe, and why it's all perfect is we get into circumstances that are there to show us who we're being and to let us know that we have been standing in the same place far too long. Have you ever had a moment where you've been standing in the same place far too long? You know you're supposed to move, you know you're supposed to grow, but it is so comfortable. And then life just dishes you out a wake up moment.
Uh-huh.
That's why it's all perfect for everyone that's listening. And in that moment, you get to examine the place where you stand and ask yourself what's great about this. And where am I required to move to? Where am I required to go to? And how am I required to expand? And then suddenly your world has expanded. Suddenly your perception of what's possible has expanded. And the requirement is that your identity also expands. That's why it's all perfect.
Absolutely. Hmm. So I think that the next thing that we could talk, and I know we talked about it just a little bit, but to really go in and hone in on how do you apply this when you're in the midst of those messy and tough, challenging situations? Because that's one of the things that I take a look at. Now, how quickly am I able to go from the woe is me to everything is perfect and collapse the time frame?
Right. Well, you know, the concept of affirmations is a opportunity to do a pattern interrupt. It's the
Mm,
opportunity to interrupt a behavior. So the affirmation that all is perfect, right? All is perfect. It's a reminder statement. It is a interruption statement. It is a statement to disrupt the pity party.
mhm.
Right. So if you haven't and you just put that in the space, even when you're with other people, because we've done it,
Yeah.
all is perfect. And so all is perfect is just a pattern interrupt. And the first thing is to stop the pity party. And usually by the time you get to all is perfect, you've already been in a little bit of the mess, the woe is me. You're in that downward spiral. You're getting into your personal valley, and you're just about to pull up the bed, the wine, the cheese, and invite friends. And that's the perfect time before you invite friends to, because the friends that you're going to invite are usually the friends that are going to validate,
Right.
oh, poor you. You now pull out that phase, all is perfect, and it stops you right in your tracks. What it's designed to do is to shift your focus, shift your perception, because until that moment, you've been perceiving this as a poor me situation.
Yeah.
All is perfect. There's nothing ambiguous about it. It's saying this situation, this circumstance, although you may not like it, although you did not want it, although you didn't ask for it, although you didn't cause it, I want to get all those things out of the way because I know so there's some people that, but I didn't cause it. Not my fault. All those things. Although it is perfect. And then you want to ask yourself some really good questions. So for me, the first one I usually ask myself is, if this is perfect, what is it telling me about why I'm here?
Mhm. That's
Right?
really good.
Why am I in this particular place? And a lot of times it is really, I'm here because I'm not willing to grow.
Mm,
I'm here because I'm not willing to be in communication. Ever
mhm.
had that moment where you end up somewhere because you didn't want to say something or say no to someone or stop something or whatever, right? Why am I here? I'm here because I'm afraid of moving,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm here because I'm living small. I'm here because why are you here?
Yeah.
And so you get an understanding of the circumstance you're in just out of why am I here? Not why what happened, but why am I here? How did I get here?
Yeah.
Right? That's the first question. Given that I don't like the circumstance that I find myself in, one is I have to accept that I'm here.
Mm-hmm.
First step, and we're going into mindset. So one of the first principles is acceptance. I'm going to accept that I'm here. And I'm going to ask myself, why am I here? How did I get myself here? So you started with truth, right? Truth removes blame. So you can't blame anybody for you're here because it's all perfect. You're supposed to be there. Truth removes guilt. Acceptance removes guilt. Don't feel bad about being here because unless you got here, you can't get here to somewhere else
To
because you would
this,
not
yes.
see, you cannot see what you don't know until you are in the
Yeah.
situation and you
Right.
go, oh, now I see it. Right. So take away the guilt. Don't carry shame because you're here, because here's going to get you there.
Yeah. I
And
love
here has
it.
some special things to teach you that you could only find out because you're here.
Yeah.
To get away the shin. Don't judge yourself. Don't judge others because those are not helpful. You are here. So
Yeah.
get rid of all the negativity and then you're here. Well, what brought you here? You kind of look at that. And then you go, well, where do I want to be? It's a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know what you don't want? So where do I want to be? And oftentimes we're upset because here's not where we want to be. Isn't that usually the thing? Here's not the response I wanted. Here's not the place I wanted to be. Here's not where I wanted to be. So, where would you like to be? Is the next place. Say that again, Sharia.
I said, oh, wow, this is so good. Because
What's good about it? What's good? What's
so
coming up for
as
you?
as we're talking through it, I'm thinking about the move. So at the top of the show, we mentioned that I had a lot of stuff going on in the month of July. It's been an amazing, amazing month. And so I'm reflecting back on our vacation and how it shifted, what it was supposed to
Mm-hmm.
be and what it turned out to be, and where we are now. So one of the things that we had planned was to take a trip to Trinidad. And all of these things started to come up around this trip and all the blockers. And I will admit, it was so frustrating. It was so hard. And I think me personally, I spent about probably 3 days going through the why. And I know I called you and about the third day, it hit me once again. And I remember saying the words to myself that it is all perfect. And the
Mm-hmm.
moment I said it is all perfect, what immediately happened was my mind shifted to what are the other things that need to happen. Like we were supposed to go to Trinidad before the move, and I don't know what we were thinking when we planned this move. We were coming back from Trinidad the Friday night, and we were moving on the Saturday.
Oh, aren't you
Very
ambitious
ambitious
souls?
people we are. And the moment I asked myself the question, it is all perfect, I remember saying like, oh my gosh, this is the opportunity, to have a more organized move. And
Mm.
immediately my energy shifted into how can I, do this better. Now I'm going to tell you what was really interesting that came up for me in that process. I had anxiety about the whole thing, but I didn't let anyone know that I had anxiety. So I was low key panicking because I'm like, what do you mean that we're going to get back at 11 o'clock at night? And then Saturday morning, we're getting a truck and we're going to put stuff and we're going to do what? That's crazy. When am I going to when am I going to sleep? Am I not going to be tired? I think I'm going to be tired because the ticket said 17 hours in travel. So I was low key, seriously, low key panicking. Nobody else was panicking, at least outwardly. And so I kept it to myself. And
Mm.
the minute that happened, number one, I felt the anxiety lifted and then just changed my focus. And then the anxiety went away. And the second thing that happened, it really allowed me to speak up for myself and have a great conversation around what I was feeling. And so
Mhm.
those are always like my learns.
And so check out how beautiful this is, right? So here you are in a relationship, and up until then, in this moment, you're withholding. You're
Mhm.
withholding communication, right? You're putting too much on your plate at a crucial time and
Yeah.
all these things. Now, in mindset would say that, you attracted exactly what you needed.
Mm.
Right. So you attracted whatever you needed. So you attracted an opportunity for the travel to be difficult,
Mm.
for the travel to be cumbersome, for the travel to be not what you want. And I'm of the belief that when I'm in alignment, things
Yeah.
they may stretch you, but they don't occur as hard. There's a difference between a stretch and hard, like force.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got into this mode where you guys were forcing this travel to happen. It wasn't just happening.
Yeah.
And so for me, that's usually the first clue is I'm forcing something versus the allowing that often happens when something is in its right time. So what are you supposed to learn? Well, one is not withhold your communication about how you feel, because when you withhold your communication,
Right.
you withhold the opportunity to build a better plan,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? And that is so key, because when two minds come together about someone's emoting their feelings, what's going on for them, and they accept that that's the feeling and they get to brainstorming, they often come up with better,
Yeah.
right? So the learn is when I get into communication with my partner, we together can come up with a better plan.
Yeah.
The second thing is maybe it's just not the right time, because the timing was that you had the move and the move was important.
Right.
So it's really interesting how when we shift and go, this is perfect, we then see the new opportunity, we see the new
Right.
possibilities. Now, you said something really crucial, and you said that the anxiety dissipated,
Yeah.
the anxiety lifted. And I really want everyone to grab this and really get what Sharia said. Because before you get to this is all perfect, you're going down the road and marinating on why it's not perfect.
Yes.
And the energy of why it's not perfect is expanding
Yeah.
into frustration, into anger, into disappointment, into all these things. And it's not that we don't experience those feelings in the moment, but when we continue to focus on how unperfect it is, we allow those emotions to expand and take over.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The minute you realize, ooh, I'm in this downward emotional spiral, and you say, oh my gosh, this is perfect. It's happening for my greater good. All is perfect right now. You
Right.
get to shift and go to this place of perfection. And the minute you shift and you start doing the looking, what happens is those emotions leave, they dissipate. Now, one of the cool things about forgiveness, about surrender, is when we surrender control and we allow ourselves to refocus, we allow the energy that's blocking us to leave,
Yeah.
right? So you allow that energy to dissipate. How much better did you feel?
Yeah. A whole lot better.
How much better did your body feel?
Oh, a
How
whole.
did your shoulders relax?
Yeah.
How did you stop clenching your jaw and grinding your teeth? How did the headache go away?
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so that's the next step, is to really, it's the refocusing and the opportunity to let that energy go.
Yeah.
Because events happen like this, but when our mind holds on to the event that's past, we hold on to the energy related to the event. Although the event happened yesterday, the day before, we're still holding and replaying and reigniting that energy. Therefore, it's here.
Yeah. And I think that that's the biggest practice for me, is how do I collapse the time frame and
Yeah.
being able to practice it? Because like I said, as I look back at the situation, it took me 3 days. And so imagine what would have happened if I got to that place on day one, or even if I got to it on day number 2,
Right.
midway, not 48 hours, but kind of midway into day number 2, so, or
Absolutely. So I want to give you a clue right now. I want to give everyone listening a clue. So you want to write this down. When you're starting to force something, in other words, when you're trying to push the ball uphill, you're starting to pull people uphill, when you're starting to try to get people to do something, okay, I want you to get this. That's the clue that maybe it's not the right time.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not saying that it's always, but it's the first thing to look. Am I forcing this? Right? Because difficult things can occur with ease. And I don't mean it's not going to stretch you. I don't mean it's not going to grow you. I don't mean it's not going to expand you. I don't mean that you won't have to do a shift. It is that you're not trying to put the square peg in the round hole.
Yeah.
You're putting the right peg in the round hole. You're just learning the skills to do it.
Yeah. It's really interesting because, like I said, it's such a great concept, and it's such a great mindset shift because, like I said, the thing is, when we see what we want to see and we want things the way how we want things, no, right? Like I said, it's the passage is biblical. So I remember like going back into that space, right? Everything happens for the greater good of those who believeth in the Lord. That's where it comes from, right? And so at that moment, I'm like, oh my gosh, am I actually questioning God's plan? Am I actually questioning his will? Because it is unto his will. And I actually had to go back, and sit in that place and be like, no, it's not your will, Taria. It's his will, and to trust and believe that in his timing, everything is good, everything is perfect. And this right here is perfect because, there's something else that you need to do. There's something else that you need to be focusing on.
And how often do we not pay attention to the ease, grace, and flow to which something's unfolding? And we begin to force, and we get what we want. But when we get there, it is like, oh my gosh, this is horrible. And it's horrible because it's not in the timing. It's horrible because it's not the place you're supposed to be. It's horrible because you haven't asked yourself some key questions. So that's the first part of it. So one is, we said, one is you do the pattern interrupt and you ask yourself the question, you say, this is all perfect. Then you say, how is this perfect? Then you ask yourself, how did I get where I want? And you accept where you are, and you kind of do, how did I get here? And then you ask yourself, where do I want to be? And it's a really key question. Where would I rather be? Or how would I rather this unfold? It's that kind of question you got to ask yourself, because we all have a vision of where we want to be. We all have an idea of what something's supposed to look like. And when you're off the mark, you ask yourself, well, where do I want to be? What do I want this to look like? How do I want to experience this? And then you ask yourself the next questions. Well, what am I supposed to learn in this moment? Right? So you learned that you were supposed to get in communication with your partner. So you guys had honest, open, timely communication. And from that honest, open, timely communication, you could generate a new possibility. Right? You might ask yourself, how am I required to grow? Well, you might have to grow in your communication. You might have to grow in surrendering to a process. That's my biggest grow. Give up control, Suzanne, because I am, control freak. So surrender to where I am, surrender to the process. Then you might ask yourself, so what am I supposed to learn? How am I supposed to grow? How am I supposed to expand? Now, this is an interesting question, because expansion means that it's already here. It's already in you. Growth is often knowledge and information. Expansion for me is there's more of me in here.
Yeah.
Right? So, what is it that's in here already that this situation is calling out of me? Because I truly believe the reason it's all perfect is because this situation is designed for your good. Therefore, it's designed for you to get to know better of you.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. When you hit that wall, you can struggle with the wall and try to push it, or you can say, how am I required to expand right now? Who am I required to become? Those questions kind of go hand in hand. And then you stop and you allow the becoming to happen.
Right.
And in the becoming, you realize, I'm supposed to be this person right now. I'm supposed to be doing this right now. I'm supposed to be blah, blah, blah right now. I'm supposed to be playing a bigger game right now. I'm supposed to be slowing down so I can speed up right now. I'm supposed to. And then you see the gift in the situation. And there's a gift in every situation. It's a beautiful process.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. I'm so glad that I have the opportunity to be able at this stage and point in my life to unpack things this way, because like I said, it takes the hard feeling, the negative feeling, and it actually turns it into something beautiful and actually something joyous, because I really do get a chance to look at my growth. And it's like always the favorite question, the question that has become my favorite question is, who am I required to become? And I find myself asking that question like several times a day as I take a look at all the challenges, all the things that, that happen just in the course of life. Who am I required to become, in this moment, to grow to this next level, to achieve this, to do this. So it's
And what you're saying right now is such a great context for everyone listening. And a context is an environment to which you create for yourself, that you live in. And one of the things for me, Tria, is when I started doing this, one was I was in less of a fight with life. How many of you have been in a
tell
fight?
me about it.
Right? You've been in a fight with life because you want it your way and life is doing it its way.
Yes.
The circumstances are going to happen. Circumstances are going to happen beyond our control. And what it allowed for me to have happen was I was able to begin to walk through the life with grace and ease.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was much easier and quicker at accepting what was going on. Okay, this is what's happening.
Right.
And then okay, so this is perfect. It's happening for my greater good. What am I supposed to learn? How am I supposed to grow? How am I supposed to expand? Who am I supposed to become? And boom, transformation happened. Boom, things happen. And so what happened was nothing bad was happening to me. Now, it wasn't that nothing bad was happening, is I didn't see anything as bad. I want you guys to really appreciate.
So that's the debate. You remember at the top of the show, I said, I've been in debate over this concept with many people. And for some people really do get it and understand. And others, kind of struggle with it because what they see is, but it's still bad. There's still bad things that happen. How can it be all good? How can it be perfect?
And it's such a great debate, and it's such a great question. However, we live our life from good, bad, right, wrong. We are conditioned to live our life from good, bad, right, wrong. And if you've been educated in the school system, good, bad, right, wrong is huge. However, good, bad, right, wrong is relative because somebody in most circumstances made it up. Because we're not really talking about those really wrong things that are clear. Like there's some things we don't debate, they're right or wrong. We just know. However, When we start putting situations into the category of right or wrong, is where we're setting ourselves up. So we're not talking about sin, like, clear sin, clear, you shot someone wrong, you lied to someone, not so good. You were rude to someone, not so great. And we're not talking about those things. We're talking about a circumstance that was planted in front of you that you now have to deal with. Well, we always have a choice. We can look at it as a bad thing and make up a story about how bad it is, because that's what we do. Or we can look at it as a good thing and make up a story about what's great about it. We just simply get to choose. My perspective is I'm going to make up a story anyway, because it's my perspective.
Right.
Why am I making up a perspective that does not serve me?
And
now, I'm not debating truth or facts, because no one knows what the truth of the facts really are, because all it is perspective. So given that I'm going to create the perspective anyway, I'm just choosing to create a perspective that keeps my energy in a good place, that keeps me moving in the direction I want my life to go, and that empowers me. I am not going to choose a perspective that's going to disempower me. Now, notice the first question I'm asking myself, though, is not how am I supposed to fool myself and make myself feel good? The first question is, what am I required to learn? Because the learn doesn't always make me feel good.
Right.
It just expands me.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just about to say, I think it's two things that you said that stood out for me. So number one is always an event. And yes, bad events happen. We can't deny that. But the second thing that stands out is what's the narrative that you will create around that event. And when I look at people who are able to do this masterfully, you would see that they're the ones who have really taken some crap situations, crap events that have happened to them, and they've made the choice not to be the victim of those things.
Absolutely.
So it's always what's the learning. So what did I learn from this? How am I going to grow from this? How could I possibly use this to help and serve others, through it? And I think that that's like the greatest gift that comes out of it's all perfect.
Now
It all happens for the greater good.
absolutely. Now the foundation of all is perfect is the premise that we are here to become more. We are here to become more. I'm not saying we're here to suffer, because suffer is a state of being, and it's often a choice. Is that we are here to become more. We are here to grow. We are here to expand. So given that that is the premise of mindset, why not, when no matter what happens, you ask questions that align you with that premise? And oftentimes what we're faced with, what I'm faced with, is usually the most common thing is I have been in this place here too long, too comfortable, and too afraid to move. So life slaps me with a circumstance that has me see myself brilliantly and clearly. And I can still choose the pity party, or I can choose more. I'm here for more. I can choose more. My access to more is that this situation right here is perfect. It is for me. It is to grow me. It is to expand me. It is to make me better. What situation would you like to say is not for that? That's just a recipe for suffering. We get to choose.
I love it. I love it. So that brings, us to the next point of why what you focus on, you will always find.
Well, it's the same car analogy, right? It's the exact same car analogy. You go to the dealership, you test drive a car, and then you get back on the highway and suddenly everybody's driving your car. Like, why is everybody driving my car down? Well, no, not everybody's driving your car. Is what you focus on, you will always find. What you focus on becomes real. So, whatever perspective you choose to focus on, poor me, this is so unfair. Why is this happening to me? It will always grow, it'll always expand. And on top of that, you'll always find reasons
Right.
to validate your thinking,
Yeah.
right? Where when you ask yourself, why is this perfect? And you go down that path because you're asking that question, you're going to find why it's perfect. You're going to find reasons because that's just how it works. And we're looking for the car in the
Yeah.
perfect place. We're not looking for why is my car always breaking down, because you'll find your car breaks down and you'll be in that thing. Once you shift, you will find what you're looking for. So what you focus on, you always find. What you focus on always becomes real to you. And
Uh,
what you focus on will always expand.
yeah. And so I like the term that is, you got to tell your brain what to think.
Always. Right. And I heard a statement later, start listening to your brain and start talking to your brain. So
Mhm.
stop listening to your mind,
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh.
because that's your automatic conversation running in the
Yep,
background, and start talking to your mind.
yep.
Start telling it and directing it and
Yeah,
focusing it and putting the right thoughts in it.
yes, yes, yes. That, like I said, that's the biggest learn. You got to tell your brain what to think. If you're not telling your brain what to think, then you're in trouble, because an untrained brain can just go to some real
It
crazy places. So you
it
want
will
to,
always go to
yeah.
negative, scary places. So true. So Tria, I have a question, and I really like this question because what I want to know from you is, I mean, you entrepreneur,
Mhm.
out there on your own, doing your own thing, and we both know that the entrepreneurial journey is a mental and emotional roller
Right.
coaster. And you've got to build a muscle of resilience. You've got to build a muscle of focus. You've got to build a very unique muscle in order to play this game.
Mhm.
What has the phrase "it's all perfect"? How has that affected your mental health?
Oh my gosh. Like I mentioned before, it allows me to, number one, see the places where I'm running in anxiety and
Mm,
I'm running ahead of stuff because I don't know or what something is, and I'm just putting myself in that space, in that emotion. Or like you said, when I'm fighting, against, something, is there's this huge resistance, and I'm just like, it's always that grind with us
mhm.
entrepreneurs, I understand. So I'm learning to let that go. So things shouldn't have to be a grind. So it's whenever I find myself in those moments, instead of just allowing things to play out or take its course, it allows me to stop and say, you know what, this is all perfect. It's all perfect. This is happening for a reason. So because this happened, what do I need to take a look at? What do I need to reevaluate? What do I need to do different? And I notice immediately when I start to ask myself those types of questions, the energy shifts and it becomes a positive energy. I find myself getting excited because it's something new for my brain to look at. Like I said,
Yeah,
we have to train our brain on what to think. And so if we're going to create a narrative, why not create the best narrative? Why not build the best story? Why not tell ourselves the best things? Why not get excited about this? And then it's like, oh, now I could leave this behind and go focus on that.
absolutely. And I know for me, if I could add, I noticed a total reduction in stress.
Mm-hmm.
Noticed a total reduction in anxiety. I noticed a total reduction in mental in overwhelm. I noticed a better sense of happiness, a continual sense of joy, more ease, grace, and flow, more relaxation. It was just like so much because trying to control things and force things takes a lot of energy.
Yeah. And you forgot to mention relationships too. So that's another thing that I noticed. Definitely a change in relationships, because no one wants to be the person that's perceived as the person who is always in struggle. You're always upset. You can't see another side of
Mm.
something. And so it's definitely a practice. And so as I learn and I practice to do this for myself, I'm also able to recognize it in relationships as well. And so when I have the opportunity to share and say, no, this is all perfect, I get the stares too. And people are like, what are you talking about? My world is falling apart. Wait, hold on. Let's take a look at this. So what's the good? What's the benefit that could come out of here? What is it that you're learning? What it is? I have my own little mini mindset thing going on over here too.
Mindset, mentor, and training.
I know, right? So, but it just allows for relationships, to take on a different feel and a different space. And so it gives me the sense that I'm growing along with, people who are in my space. And
Absolutely.
yeah, and they also have the opportunity, to try these things, on, and it makes for great relationships, great discussions, great growth. And so therefore you keep relationships longer. That was my roundabout way to say
Mhm.
you maintain
And
relationships longer.
well, I think you keep relationships longer, but you bless and release a whole bunch of other
Yeah.
relationships, because there are people who are committed to the struggle. There are people who are committed to blame, shaming, judging, and it's not perfect. It is someone else's fault. And so for me, I learned to bless and release those people, or spend limited time with those people, because they affect my environment. And I want to be surrounded by people who are positive. I want the cup half full people. I want the life is amazing people. I want, like, where are we growing today people in my life. I want people who are going to ask me questions when I get in those situations that stretch and expand me, and really make me look at who I'm being
Mhm.
and who I'm required to be. So absolutely.
All right. And I do have a question for you. So one of the things that I take a look at is process. So how long does it take, to implement this stuff? And I'm all about collapsing time frames, right? So how long did it take you to embrace the concept of everything happens for the good? And was it something that you got right away, or did it take you some time to build into it?
It was interesting because once I stopped fighting it, because that's the first thing. I was fighting it. I was pissed off. I was like, that really? And really, what I was hanging on to was the payoff of my pity party. I want
Mm,
everyone to get that. The payoff of my pity party, because the payoff of my pity party meant that I didn't have to move, meant that I didn't have to grow, meant that I could just stay in where I was, that was comfortable, that was safe, that had me play small and feel okay. Because really, I was afraid.
yeah.
Once I decided, because the pain got too great, to grow, and I said, I'm going to try it on, it happened like that.
Mm.
And so I tried it, it worked. I was like, wow, that's kind of like a miracle thing. I tried it again and it worked. And then I tried it again and it worked. And once something works and it moves you forward, it becomes your go-to.
Yeah.
Now, does that mean that I worked it instantly quickly? No. It's a practice. And like anything you practice, it time collapses. The more you practice, the shorter the time gets. However, it's how persistent you are in the practice. Now, I'm someone, that I like intensity. So once I learn something, I'm going like, do it, 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 until it becomes an automatic way of being. And I kind of became that gal around this. Now it's just my go-to.
Mhm.
It is just, something happens, this happens, even when I'm afraid, it's like, what's perfect about this fear? Well, it tells me that I'm moving in the right direction because I'm afraid. That means, and it's not imminent danger fear, like you're gonna crash, you're gonna step, like it's not that fear, it's the fear in my mind.
Right.
And when I experience that fear in my mind, what's great about this? Well, it means I'm moving in a place that has me uncomfortable, therefore I'm growing.
You're growing.
Right?
Yeah.
or I'm moving in a place where I shouldn't be. And my mind is giving me the warning signs like, girlfriend, what are you doing? You know, you shouldn't be here. So has me very self-aware.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has me talking to myself versus listening to what's automatically playing in my head.
Yeah. I love that.
So it's pretty instant once you try it. And it's kind of mind-boggling when you first do it, because you're like, oh, how did all this open up? It's like there were 3 doors and you've been walking through the same, well,
One door all the time.
you've been banging into the same locked door, trying to open it, force it, and there's 3 doors, but you never thought to go, oh, look, there's 3 doors. Maybe those let me out. And then you start to learn like, oh, it's door number 3. Hey.
Yeah. I love it.
So as we wrap, I want to summarize for people so that they really have something to hold on to. So an event happens that provides you with a circumstance that's not what you desire. Rather than going down the lane of pity party and poor me, do the pattern interrupt and ask yourself, what is perfect about this? It's all perfect. What is perfect? How is this perfect? And then once you do that, say, I got to accept where I am, sit in acceptance. And you know you're in acceptance when you're willing to give up blame, shame, judgment, guilt, and all those negative things that you want to do that keep you stuck in this place. You're really just releasing emotion. You're experiencing it and releasing it. Once you get to that place, it's like, how did you get here? And you'll notice that, oh my gosh, things come up. I didn't have that conversation. I'm avoiding this. I'm avoiding that, blah, blah, blah. And then you ask yourself, how am I required to grow? What am I required to learn? Who am I required to become? And how am I required to expand? And that'll give you some great information. And then you use faith and courage. Courage just means you trust what you're learning, and you step out on faith, and you allow the transformation to happen. You allow a new circumstance to unfold. I want to leave everybody with the law of cause and effect, right? So we tend to fight with the effect, right? Something happened and the effects of it we don't like. We don't actually believe or understand that we can go back and be at cause in this same effect. When you be at cause, as you shift your thinking, you go, what's perfect about this? And you shift the narrative. Now you're a cause on this same circumstance, and now you're able to choose how you're going to respond, which shifts the dynamics of that circumstance, because it shifts the context, it shifts the environment. And as soon as you shift the environment, the information inside the situation shifts and begins to look differently. You just shift perspectives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Tria, as we wrap, what is our quote for today? What are we leaving everyone
Oh my
with?
gosh, we are leaving our super achievers today with a quote from Benjamin Hardy. And the quote is, it's easy to miss the gains happening throughout our lives or businesses because we may have tunnel vision on the problem in front of us.
Amen.
And so I absolutely love this quote because it just ties back into everything that we have been talking about today. So as you go through these challenges that you have, to always look for the gains, look for the wins. So are you training your brain to look for the wins and not stay in the losses of the challenges?
Because no matter what is happening in your life, there's a gift, there's a blessing somewhere. There always is. The trick is to train your mind to look for it. So all is perfect is your pattern interrupt, and shift your perspective and begin to examine what's really happening. And you'll see that it is actually happening for you.
All right.
So, oh my gosh, so you have been here with us with the Influence Journey Show. My name is Suzanne Hart. This is my partner in crime, Taria Hodge. And as we part, we always want to remind you to know you are brilliant, know you are oh so very special. And we do this work because the world is waiting.
All right, take care, super achievers. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Ciao.